All right, let's call this Thursday, February 9th, 2023 meeting of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District Board to order. First, we'll have an attendance roll call. Mr. Swafford.
I'm sorry, what?
Just here, this is a roll call.
Oh, yeah, here. Tom usually asks roll call, or Holly.
Oh, I'm
so
sorry, okay.
You confused me there.
Whichever way, whatever you're...
Go ahead, why don't you do it? In the council, we usually do it, we just do it ourselves.
McKim,
Here.
Thomas, Githens,
Here.
Hamilton,
Here.
Piedmont Smith,
Here.
Jones,
Here.
Swafford.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we now have the executive committee meeting minutes for November 28th, 2022. Have there been any, have everybody had a chance to read them? Have there been any amendments?
I believe those are just informational, since the board doesn't approve those. The executive
Yeah, those are reviewed and approved by the executive committee and provided to the board for information purposes. And apologize that we do not have last month's board meeting minutes. They did not get completed in time to make it into the packet. So we'll hopefully have those as well as today's meetings minutes next month.
Okay, so we don't actually have any minutes that need approval, do we?
No.
Okay. All right, well then, we can move on to the controller's report. So we have 2022 year-end cash flows.
Yes, we do. For cash flows, included in the meeting packet is the cash flow summary and fund-specific cash flow statements for year-end 2022, showing month-end balances for as of December 31st, 2022, as follows. Operating with $3,014,098.25. Money market savings, $1,007,203.78. Closure bond, $160,988.60. Capital, $45,492.67. Landfill post-closure, $730,451.34. Emailed to you yesterday was the 2023 year-to-date cash flow summary and fund-specific cash flow statements for month-ending balances for January 31, 2023 as follows. Operating $2,690,580.24. Money market savings $1,008,969.84. Closure bond $7,847.94. Capital $45,508.62. Landfill post-closure $735,222.13. Are there any questions on cash flow?
Does anybody have any? Yes, it's Piedmont Smith.
Yes, just looking at the 2022 year-end, the detailed page for expense on page 11 of our packet. It wasn't clear to me whether the column that says 2021 encumbered not spent, is that actually 2022 encumbered not spent?
No, that's actually 2021 because that is the year-end 2022 cash flow. So those would have been encumbrances from 2021 into 2022 because that cash flow is for the 2022 budget year.
So do we have any 2022 unpaid encumbrances?
We do. They did not make it into the cash flow statement that was emailed out yesterday, but they will be included next month.
So do you have an overall report on
I think you hit that backward. We spent less than what was budgeted.
That's what I meant. Sorry if I
Generally,
I awkwardly phrased that. So, I guess I'm trying to figure out how much did we have remaining in our budgeted funds?
Are you asking for the reversion amount?
yes, that's what
Yeah.
she,
Is that, I apologize, off the top of my head, I would not have an exact figure, but it is roughly going to be, because we would not consider the encumbrances as a part of that, so it's going to be roughly the difference between the year-to-date and the budget columns on that spreadsheet.
So about $70,000?
Yeah.
Miss Piedmont Smith, can you check your mic? We have people on Zoom saying they aren't able to hear you.
this mic works. Do you hear me?
Is this better? Oh, there
That's
we go.
much better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, everybody. So I was just trying to figure out what the amount of reversions were from 2022, and it looks like it's about $70,000. Is it,
We can bring that figure to you. We can calculate an exact figure and get that to you.
Yeah, just by line or category at least?
Yeah.
Okay. Will that address your concern if you get a report from Mr. McGlasson?
yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Did you, oh, I'm sorry. No, go, Mayor Hamilton.
So I just wanted to note, this being my first meeting of the year anyway, we ended 2022 with over $4 million in the operating fund monthly balance. If I'm looking at page 13 graph, which I always appreciate, thank you. Which is a very healthy balance, and has grown from 1.6 million, 1.7 million in 2016 gradually. 800,000 last year. So I don't know if they're unusual things, but I do think one of the things we think about is over the next several years, there's an extraordinary amount of federal money, infrastructure money, energy money, climate-related money, and it can be a very powerful time to leverage that money by using local money to do things that may be effective. And it would seem to be prudent to think about, are there ways, if we view this as an asset that we can invest to accomplish the missions of the board, it would seem the next year or two would be really good years to think about that in ways that might leverage federal money. So I just want to note that and encourage thinking about what might be out there to help us achieve our mission with the infrastructure bill, with the inflation. Sorry. Thank you, sorry. And would encourage us to think about that in the coming months, I suppose. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Should I oh, sorry.
On page 9,
I don't think you're on.
Doesn't sound too loud.
get on something else here. Okay. I can move. On page 9, the end date should be 2022, not 2023. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that earlier. I would have sent that. I know we're all trying to get into 2023 quickly. But also,
Yes.
a year or two ago, we actually moved some money out of operating into savings, and with what the mayor has noted as this very large surplus, basically in our operating fund, I would like for the executive board to investigate whether or not to move more money into that savings account, knowing that we can quickly move it out anytime that we need to.
Is that the $45,000 in capital? Is that what you're?
No, that's the close to $4 million that the mayor was discussing. A year or two ago, we moved $1 million out of operating into a savings account so that it was at least drawing a little bit of income. And with that much of a surplus right now, I'd like to discuss moving more into just the savings, because we can take it out within about 3 days, correct? Anytime we need to. So.
Oh, the one that's labeled $1 million, that's about $1 million
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. So this last year, we actually earned over $6,700, which is not a lot, but it's still something.
I just, and Mr. McKim, I guess, since you were not on the board when we did that, that was, we were with another financial institution at that time, and we were not, all of our funds were held in a checking type account that did not garner any interest. So that was the purpose of, moving that sum into a savings account, so that we earned some, as Ms. Githen said, earned some interest on it. We have since changed financial institutions, and all of our accounts, even our checking accounts, are earning interest. So while I agree it's always good to look at those things, I think we need, I will try to get from the bank for the executive committee when they wish to discuss this, the interest rates that the various accounts are earning, and if they're all earning the same interest, that may impact the decision that we want to make.
Okay. Thank you. Well, and then also to get back to the mayor's point, I always look at this as a county councilor, and one of the things we look at each year is the 4B statement, where at the very end you have an operating balance, which is basically after the 2-year period, what do you have left at the end of the day? And then you look at that as a percentage of the budget. Do you have a sense of what that number is?
Off the top of my head, that was a few months.
Okay, I mean,
it's a solid figure. We're on good financial footing.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, maybe too good financial footing to address what the
potentially,
mayor
depending on perspective.
is saying. Yeah. I mean, we like to keep that ratio at maybe 35%, but I have this feeling that it's probably quite a bit higher.
I think it is higher than that. Yes.
Here, which means that we're basically bringing in money and taking money from the taxpayers that we probably should be investing in doing what the taxpayers want us to do with the money. So, okay. I think that sounds like a good discussion for a future executive committee
Sure.
meeting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on the cash flow reports?
Yes. Okay, so, sorry.
I'm from the board.
We finished cash flows.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you want me
Do
to
you wanna-
move on with payroll
Yes,
and claims?
to claims and payroll.
Okay. Beginning on page 18 of the meeting packet are pre-approved payroll and claims in the amount of $182,453. $182,453.23. Emailed to you yesterday were claims processed this week with claims for board approval in the amount of $6,770.10 and payroll and claims pre-approval under Resolution 2022-02 in the amount of $85,751.93. The total amount of claims for approval today are $274,975.26. Are there any questions on payroll and claims?
All right. Let's see if there are any questions from my right. Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
I was just wondering about the large payment for Relichit hauling and for what month that was.
Okay.
Since December
Sorry, let
was,
me
I
check
think, pretty dry.
Tech services, if you could give Lee Paulson the ability to speak and share his video, he can address that.
There you go. I'm trying. That was just for the month of January. So basically, it was a more wet month, and the ground had frozen, whatever was in the ground during the month of December, and it all thawed, and it all came out. So we were not able to run due to the cold weather, not able to run a lot of cycles per day with our treatment system, so it had to be hauled. So it is a large bill, but it's The number of gallons that we hauled was not exorbitant considering it's just the cost of those things are more expensive now than they've been in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. I think I was looking at December where there was 0 leachate generated,
Yeah,
and I was confused. So this is an actual very punctual bill for January. Got it.
Yeah, yep, they are, yep.
Questions? Okay. Any questions from the left? All right, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move approval of payroll and claims as given in our meeting packet, plus the addendum emailed yesterday.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, if there's no other comments from the board, we'll do a roll call vote.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes?
Swafford,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to district rebranding consultant request for additional information.
If you'll recall at the last meeting, you were presented 3 proposals that staff had received, for consultants interested in working with us on our rebranding project. At that meeting, the board instructed staff to seek some additional information from Lambert Consultant and 1031 Marketing. So you have in the packet beginning on page 26 the additional information requested from those 2 proposers as well as their original proposal. And at this point, in the interest of moving things along, staff would ask that the board make a decision today to move forward with one of the consultants.
Great. Well, let me first just ask if you have a recommendation. I know you do, but.
Yeah, the additional information, both consultants provided the information that was asked for. But as I said last month, I think that either of them would do a great job for us. As we discussed, we have experience with Lambert Consulting within the district. Was able to talk with some people at City of Bloomington that have some experience with 1031 marketing on the Visit Bloomington website, Go Bloomington website. They had nothing but good things to say, but looking at the cost difference and given the familiarity with Lambert Consulting, that would still be my recommendation as it was last month.
Lambert. Okay. Let's see. Are there any comments from the right or any questions from Mr. McGlasson?
So I am sorry, I'm kind of behind on this, I think. And I am in no way against any investments in brand development and improvements. I guess so just help me understand, I guess. I'm trying to, as I think about it, I think a branding logo, new name, new slogan, et cetera, I think about that as wanting to implement perhaps new efforts, new like leading with what are we trying to accomplish? And to me, we should be talking about that a lot, as I mentioned, about the resources that we have and the opportunities ahead. So I'm sorry, I'm a little behind the curve on this, I think, because I feel like maybe they can help us do that, but it just helped me understand where this came from. Was this in the strategic plan? And
this is actually something that was first brought up when we were developing the 5-year solid waste plan, and so it is in the plan to look at doing this, and part of the rebranding, that has been discussed, is looking at the goals and objectives that have already been defined and outlined in that plan, and looking at a brand that helps identify us with those goals and objectives.
Yes. Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Mr. Mr. McGlasson, can you summarize the cost estimates for us?
Well, yeah, the Lambert Consulting was 12,500 and 1031 Marketing was 14,000.
And then we also inquired about additional work as far as website content updates and things like that.
Yeah, and that is included in the packet. And let's see, for I believe on page 27 of the packet, in an email that's included, Lambert Consulting, outlined their hourly rate for doing work above and beyond the scope of the proposal. And for 1031 Marketing, there are a couple of different sheets included, starting on page 64, for hourly rates for employee services outside the scope of the proposal, and then as was requested, web hosting and maintenance package pricing if we were to consider moving our web hosting to them.
And the hourly rate, I believe, was 75 for Lambert and more like 125 for...
Well, it would depend on the staff member. If you can see on page 64 of the packet, it ranges from $75 to $150 an hour, depending on which member of the staff is doing the work.
Right, for $75 you get an intern doing it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
It's pretty good for an intern. Any comments from the left?
I need to become an intern, I think. But yeah, for me, part of this is driven by that difference in cost, especially for the updating on the website. And I also think that the experience Lambert has already with the district, he knows he's not starting from zero, I guess, because he helped update the website as it is right now.
And I believe, of course, we discussed this at the last board meeting extensively and then discussed it again at the executive committee meeting. And I think our general consensus in the executive committee was that both proposals were qualified and had good recommendations, and we had good experiences with all of them. But for both the reasons that Commissioner Githens just mentioned, the price and then also the familiarity with the district, it makes sense to award to Lambert. That was our recommendation as an executive committee. So does anybody else want to make any comments, or would somebody like to make a motion to recommend that that staff move forward with finalizing the agreement with one of the proposers? Please.
I guess I'll unmute myself. I guess I'll make a motion to accept the proposal from Lambert Consulting and move ahead with the rebranding project.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other comments from either the right or left? Is there any public comment on this matter? Let's see, are there any public? There's no public on Zoom at all. Are there any members of the public here? Please. It's not very loud. Is it green?
Push it down. Push here.
There you
How
go.
about
There you go.
now?
The light's on.
Better? Different? Yes?
Better, yes.
Hello, thank you for your patience. Yes, Joseph Winia, Chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Just wanted to say thank you to the board for considering these and for helping to move ahead with the rebranding process, which I am excited about. I do think that will really help bring a lot of attention to a lot of the 5-year management plan goals and objectives. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to make comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed with a roll call vote.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Abstain.
Swafford,
Yes.
Githens.
Yes.
Motion passes with one abstention.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move ahead with the partnership with City of Bloomington on multi-dwelling composting pilot.
Yeah, there's a memo on page 86 of your packet discussing this. This is something that's been discussed, I guess, a couple of times at the executive committee meetings, once late last fall, early winter, and then again last month, where the city is interested in developing or working with a local company that does this or is interested in this work, and trying to develop a pilot program to see if we can't do something to encourage and promote residents of apartment complexes, condominium communities, other multifamily dwelling complexes and facilities to do composting. So obviously there's a lot to figure out, and developing such a project, or at least how we would do requests for such a project. As you can see in the memo, there's a number of steps that would need to be taken. We'll have to do an interlocal or some sort of similar agreement with the city. Again, the program criteria and goals would need to be established so we can do requests for proposals, and timelines would need to be established, but have spoken with Alex Crowley in the city's sustainability department, and he's certainly interested in this collaboration. Threw some numbers around, and we kind of think that, if a total between the two, the city and the district, if we had $50,000 to $60,000, that would probably be enough to kick off a pilot program at 4 or 5, maybe 6 different facilities, depending on the complexes that were identified. Of course, we would need to identify the local company that would, respond to that and be able to put that pilot program into effect. But we certainly think it's a worthwhile goal, and it's something that, again, it's kind of new, but in the interest of time, as you see in the memo, kind of asking the board if they would consider, authorizing staff to move forward, working with City Office of Sustainability, and start to move this forward with a commitment of an equal funding to what the city is willing to provide, up to a maximum of $30,000, which would get us at that $60,000 level that we've identified that we think would be sufficient to put something productive in place.
Great, thank you. Let's see if we have any questions for Mr. McGlasson from the left.
I don't have a question. I do say that I support this and would like to see it move forward quickly, because I know that we've got to get in before spring to get this started.
Questions or comments from the right?
Yes, I'm very in support of this, but I'm just kind of curious if you have much idea of how it will actually affect the waste stream. As far as I know, many, many apartments have garbage disposals, and that's how most things that would be composted are taken care of. So do you anticipate this affecting?
Well, it's hard to put a weight value, or a volume, on that. Obviously, a part of this would have to be education to the residents of those facilities that, instead of dumping it into the sink and running the garbage disposal, have your can or your bucket to the side, and we'll have the bin out in the your courtyard or wherever. So there's obviously an education component that would have to be a part of this program.
Yes, I guess kind of what I'm asking is this just for the benefit of the people who live there? Does the solid waste district benefit from this? Or is it just an educational?
At this point, have not identified any, direct, I guess, benefit, to the district, other than it helps to further our mission, which is we're taking material that would otherwise, go to a final disposal facility or a wastewater treatment plant if it's going down the garbage disposal, and using that to convert that into a usable compost or topsoil that hopefully, the housing complex could use for, for landscaping or a community garden or something to that effect.
Yeah, that certainly sounds very worthwhile to me, so I'm glad we're doing it.
Any other comments from the right? Okay, well, so it looks like, and I'm excited about this, and I know education is a big component of this in kind of building a culture of composting and reuse in the apartment complex, and I'm really excited about that. So it looks like you're looking for a motion that would allow basically pre-authorize staff to negotiate the appropriate agreement with the city of Bloomington and commit an amount equal to the city's contribution not to exceed $30,000.
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for? Okay, would anybody like?
So moved.
Okay,
Just
we
what
have
you said.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's see, any other comments from the right or left? Yes.
Well, just to say, I'm very much in favor of this. I think it does match our mission, and I'd like to remind everybody that the Kessler study we did in 2018, oh my gosh, it's almost 5 years ago, showed that up to 39% of our waste could be recycled or composted. And I think this is a great practice for people in apartment buildings to engage in, the composting. It could carry forward if they then move to another residence, a single-family residence, or a different apartment complex. It could significantly reduce organic waste in the waste stream, which, as we know, produces methane, and which is a much stronger greenhouse gas emitter. So. Or greenhouse gas. So I'm very much in favor, and I look forward to proposals that might come in from this.
Please.
Before you vote, I think was remiss, one point of clarification, that in talking with the city, they would be looking at the district to manage the funding and the program, because obviously we would not zero in on just city facilities, and so if we have, apartments, condominium complexes outside the city of Bloomington that are interested in doing this, we don't want to exclude them, and the city thought that it would be better for the district to manage the funding and the proposals in that instance.
Okay, so Mayor Hamilton, as the maker of the motion, do you acknowledge that the district would be managing the process as part of your motion?
I do, and assume he will negotiate that as part of that, yeah.
Okay,
Negotiate an agreement.
And I would hope that we would have one or more complexes, apartment complexes outside the city of Bloomington, whether it's in the unincorporated part or in Ellettsville, that we focus on making sure that it's countywide.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes.
Well, I would just add the preliminary survey of apartment complexes that the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability did a few years ago. I think they showed that 92% of them were in the city limits. And of course, there should be a broad net cast to see if any outside the city limits are interested and could meet the site requirements and the interest level that would be required. But I would hesitate to require that, because what if none of them are interested, even after significant outreach? So just because such a high proportion are within city limits.
And the complexes that ultimately get involved in the pilot may all wind up being in the city. We just didn't want to, be in a position where, we had to exclude, or the city was uncomfortable, managing the funding or promoting something that was going on outside of the city limits.
Well, and you could do a little extra outreach in the unincorporated area or in Ellettsville. I think it's a good idea to do what we can to expand that, to make sure that some of the pilot, or at least maybe one of the complexes.
And that's part of the intent. We certainly are not.
I agree. We take what
we would not anticipate, whoever responded to the request for proposals, and if they. If they excluded outside of the city limits, that would probably be a, one strike against them when it came to awarding the proposals, as we certainly don't want to restrict the eligibility of it.
Great.
May I make one more comment? if I
Please.
may? So I completely agree with all that, and I think just find the ones that'll do it. I think that's great. I do think it's important to remember in terms of the money, the solid waste district, 2/3 of our funding is property tax revenue, give or take, which is provided by all the residents of the county, most of whom live in the city. So most of the revenue from the property taxes comes from city residents. The city is adding direct city taxpayer money to that. You know, if the county wanted to add direct money, that'd be awesome too, right, for this kind of project. I completely think you'll do the right thing, find the right places and wherever they land. If there's one in Ellisville, that's awesome and all that. But I do think it's important to remember that most of the property tax money that comes into this body comes from city residents. It's not like it's designed for outside city services.
There would be no intent to steer the pilot program to any one area or facility or anything like that. So.
Just want to keep everybody included. That's all right. Great. Is there any public comment? All right. Seeing none, we will do a roll call vote.
Swafford,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
McKim.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you. All right. Now we're on to item number 8, CAC Resolution 2023-01 to amend Citizens Advisory Committee bylaws.
And I would invite Mr. Winia if he has anything that he wants to say or add. This is before the board. If you'll recall, last month we passed a resolution that basically replaced the original resolution establishing the CAC. That triggered some things in the CAC bylaws that needed to be updated and revised, and the CAC bylaws do require that any proposed changes come before the board before the CAC votes on them. So here they are.
Hello again, Joseph Winia here. I think I really don't have a lot to add to what was already provided in the memo. It was pretty straightforward. None of the changes are really substantive. And I'll just note that, as Mr. McGlasson mentioned, in our current bylaws, the Article 6 on amendment just does state that under Section 2, there's a board review just to provide board members the opportunity to provide input or recommendations. There was already a couple of minor recommendations provided by the executive committee that are also represented in the proposed amendments that appear in the packet. But it's really just a lot of updates to make new references and to just reflect the changes from the district's Resolution 2023-02 that establishes the CAC. So thank you for your time and your review on this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Great. Thanks. Let's see if there are any questions from the right or from the left. Okay, would anybody like to make a motion for adoption of Resolution 2023-01?
So moved.
That is actually the CAC's resolution.
Oh, that's,
Oh.
okay.
This is just the board's chance to review and comment, and if there are any issues or objections to the changes being proposed, now is the time to
Oh,
raise
good
those.
point. Okay, we don't actually vote. So we don't actually need to vote on this at all?
Yeah.
As long,
If
okay.
there are no issues being raised, then there's no action required by the board.
Well, I'm not hearing, Mary Hamilton has an issue.
I just want to say I appreciate and maybe I could adopt this, if you're more than 10 minutes late after the meeting, you're marked tardy. I think that's a good thing to put in formality, but it's good.
All right, great. Any other comments? Okay, well, I guess you can take that as a signal that the board has no objections. No. All right, let's see, we also have the joint, this is an important one, joint CAC Board of Directors meeting proposal and 5-year plan review.
I would invite Mr. Winia back to the podium. It is the CAC's proposal.
You may want to just sit in the front row.
I think that's a really good suggestion, and I may actually just stand right here for the next item as well. Again, I think that the content in the memo really represents all that the CAC had, just a number of points when we were doing our 5-year management plan review that we thought the board would be interested in considering. The main ones are all listed in the memo. And that would essentially be an opportunity, starting with an opportunity for the board and the CAC just to discuss these items, and then whichever ones we agree to do together, we would proceed to do during our joint meeting. And if, I imagine the board would be interested in pursuing at least half or more of them, and then whichever ones the board is not inclined to pursue, the CAC can just do in subsequent meetings afterwards. In particular, the one that I think would have more discussion is the idea of a rolling plan model, where instead of a single block of 5 years that starts at year 1 and ends at year 5 and then starts over, it would be a 5-year rolling window where each year it could potentially be revised with the preceding 5-year window and just updated with what's been achieved and what is desired for the, I guess, the 5th year out, and making constant adjustments. So it was, I think, a big enough change or suggestion change that warranted having a conversation about the merits, potential costs and benefits, and see what both the board and CAC think about it, rather than actually adopt or proceed with any of these plans, just to have a conversation about each of them.
So do we have a date?
Yeah, and then actually a slight error at the end of the memo there. We did discuss at the executive committee meeting targeting the next CAC meeting, which is actually February the 16th, not the 23rd. I do it all the time, don't worry about it.
Indeed.
But that, I believe there's interest among the CAC members to piggyback a joint meeting on their regularly scheduled meeting, if there's interest and availability amongst the board. I would remind the board that state statute does require the board to meet jointly at least twice a year. With the CAC, we've historically always done one joint meeting related to the budget preparation. And the second meeting generally organically comes about by some other issue or topic that there's a need to discuss. The rolling review plan, might provide an opportunity for us to already have those two meetings, two joint meetings every year, pre-planned in essence. We can always do additional meetings if other issues arise, but it would be nice to know that. For staff's purposes, for scheduling meetings, that we already have those joint meetings planned for year to year.
Okay. So it would be February 16th,
February 16th, and the CAC meeting is scheduled to begin at 5:30. I think there might be an opportunity to use that time slot, maybe go a little earlier, and they could bump their start time back a little bit. But it's the pleasure and availability of the board.
Okay. Let's see, any comments on this proposal from the right?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea, and kind of can help us stay on track with a 5-year plan, and which we there was a extended period where we did not revise the plan, which we don't want to repeat. I think that Mr. McGlasson had already reached out to board members about the 16th. Mr. McGlasson, did you get a quorum number
I did not get a
people?
quorum of responses, but I didn't get a quorum of responses, so
Okay.
it's not that there wasn't a quorum available. I did not get enough responses to even determine if there was a quorum available.
So maybe we can comment tonight if we're available.
What time is it?
Well, the CAC meeting is scheduled for 5:30, and I think there'll be an opportunity to use that time slot, or CAC members might be available to come in, a little earlier at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and then push their start time back. I don't want to speak for you or the CAC, but I think there's some willingness amongst the CAC membership to be accommodating here to the extent possible.
I would be available. I would prefer 5 o'clock rather than earlier, but.
I'm not available on the 16th after 3.
I would be.
I'm sorry, you said you are?
Yes,
Okay,
I would be.
thanks.
I am available.
I have it on my calendar already.
1, 2, 3,
That
4. Okay, well, at
is
least
a
we've got a
quorum.
quorum.
So, Mr. Mayor, and I will check with Commissioner Thomas, and if we get 5 or 6 there, that would be wonderful, but we'll at least have 4 committed at this point.
Yep.
So are we looking at a start time of 5 o'clock?
I would like yeah, I'm
5
seeing no
o'clock?
objections to 5 o'clock.
Well, if this,
Oh.
but the
I'll note-
CAC is planning on 5:30, so.
There's only one CAC member that I'm aware of that has a schedule constraint for around the 5:30 time. But I know we would still have a quorum of CAC members, and I imagine, I haven't checked with the CAC yet, but as Mr. McGlasson mentioned, that there would be flexibility with the CAC's actual meeting start time if it were to be bumped a half an hour later to accommodate the joint portion for an hour first. I also know that our business is light for our next meeting, so we could even have a shorter meeting to accommodate more time with the board during that scheduled time. Does that provide some more information?
So would a start time of 5 PM instead of 5:30 PM, do you think that would work for the CAC?
I think so, yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
And are we thinking an hour for that joint meeting? And would the CAC be able to push their start time back to 6?
I can definitely propose all of those things to the CAC and get responses to confirm if that would be of help as well before finalizing the meeting time for everyone. But I, off the top of my head, imagine that would be a reasonable and possible time arrangement.
Okay.
And with the short agenda, you might even be able to wrap up by your normal end time at 6:30
Exactly.
anyway. So.
Exactly. I don't imagine it being a more than 30-minute meeting for the CAC.
Okay.
In the recent past, what have the format of these joint meetings been? Have they still been the board up here, or is it sitting across the table?
I'm not sure about the availability of this room. The CAC currently meets in room 100B of North Showers. Unless there's objections, it's not the biggest room, but it would make sense to hold the meeting there. We know that is available. And then as far as the format goes, generally the board chair has run those, but again, historically it's been over the budget or some other issue that has come up, and this would probably be the first time the CAC has brought forth the agenda, the proposed agenda, and the request for the meeting, and I would leave that to the board chair and the CAC chair as to who runs the meeting.
I mean, 100B sounds great, and I like the idea of sitting at a table together while we're having this kind of meeting. I guess that's what I was getting at, is it board members standing up on sitting at the, under the lights and everything, or is it us sitting across the table?
Well,
I prefer the latter.
When we've had joint meetings in here, we have had them set
Okay.
like the county council work sessions do, and we all sit at a table. So.
Thank you. All right. Well, all right, so do you have enough information?
I have enough
to proceed?
information. We will get things scheduled and noticed.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Winia, I guess you don't even have to leave the lectern there. We have the CAC report.
Indeed. So there's actually most of the things in it we covered already within the scope of this very meeting. And part of the reason we have a light load for our next meeting is because we accomplished a lot at our last January meeting. We had most of our annual meeting, so we did officer elections. I am still presently the chair, and we set our meeting schedule, and we also did produce our 2022 activity and expenditures reports, which follows immediately this page in the meeting packet, which is page 105. That's where the activity report starts. Again, most of those things are things that you're already familiar with because it's the highlight of CAC activities, which has been provided in previous board reports and several of which you've also engaged with either directly or as subcommittee members. The rest of the items are related to the bylaw changes and the proposed joint meeting. So things that you're all already up to speed on, but still happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Great, thank you. Any questions from Mr. Winia from the left? Right, from the right?
Yeah, I wanted to inquire, so in your annual report, first of all, thank you so much for providing the report. It's very helpful to have an overview of your work last year. So there was a implementation and evaluation guidance subcommittee, which provided a report, or is that report available? Should that factor into our review of how we're doing on the 5-year plan? Can you share more about that?
Yeah, so the document that was discussed and had a draft created was for the district to be able to provide reports, or district staff rather, to be able to provide reports on progress on 5-year plan goals and objectives. So essentially a simplified template, because a lot of the goals and objectives have specific metrics with numbers associated with them or timeframes associated with them, that if they're, say, a quarterly recurring thing where there's a specific number of 2 items that are supposed to be achieved, there's just a field for that goal and for that number for staff to be able to say how many were achieved, so that we could have clarity on the progress and then also have progress tracking over time to see how many of each thing is being accomplished. And so the idea was just to draft something standard that contains all of those standard items out of the plan to be able to provide to staff to ease the reporting process, so it's not an additional burden of reporting on top of the work of accomplishing the goals and objectives. And that was the context and what was produced from it.
Thank you, that's great. So did that produce some reports that we could maybe see in advance or at the meeting next
I'm
week?
gonna have to fall on the sword here. That stalled with me. We never did get a final worksheet, report sheet together. A draft got forwarded to me, and I apologize. So we'll pick that back up and see what we can do to finalize that. Perhaps it could even be something that's presented and discussed at the joint meeting, so the board can weigh in and make sure that, you know, that we're hitting on the goals, the objectives, the topics that the board would be interested in receiving information on as we move forward.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. So now we'll move on to department reports.
Yes, apologize in advance. This is going to be a little lengthy. So there's first, I'll start with some good news. We do have an accepted offer for the waste reduction specialist position. Unfortunately, she currently lives in Wisconsin. But was already, for other reasons, was already planning on moving to this area at the end of February. So she has accepted the offer. We have her scheduled to start on March 6th. Kayla Strand is her name. And excited to bring her on board and get her started in that role and see where she can take that. And then on page 108 of the packet, just some dates that are coming up that are important to the district and moving forward with not just programs and services, but also potentially have a financial impact on us moving forward. So the last report I got from Rumpke, they're still on schedule with their new facility to get that open in late March or early April. That does trigger a clause in our solid waste disposal agreement with the Public Services, where we need to enter into a host fee agreement with that new facility. If everyone will recall, when Rumpke was here discussing and going through the permitting process of getting that facility approved, they did state that they would be willing to enter into that host fee agreement. So we will need to get that in place. Also coming up on May 1st, the initial term of our recyclables and transportation agreement with your public service does expire. That covers the hauling of all of our materials, as well as the processing of plastics and fiber materials. It does cover the hauling of metals, but those are sent to the 2 local scrap yards, JB Salvage and Bloomington Iron and Metal. But glass is the one commodity that is wholly excluded from that agreement. But the way that the agreement is readed, it will automatically renew, barring either entity providing written notice to the other. That notice has a 120-day requirement on it. So at this point, it's going to renew even if somebody provided notice tomorrow. But it couldn't be terminated prior to the end of that initial term without cause. But during the renewal terms, And legal interpretation we have of the agreement is that that 120-day notice could be provided at any time during a renewal term. I think the important things to note with that agreement, unfortunately, because at the time we entered into that 3 years ago, we do pay $26.40 a ton for the processing of our recyclable materials. That's just where the markets were at that time. And they've gone up and down. Some of the fiber materials, I do know that some other districts here and there have gotten some money back on some fiber materials as the market has gone up and down. But unfortunately, with our agreement, that we didn't have that option. Currently, I think the markets are down a little bit, and I don't know that anybody's getting much money off of anything. But the big one is the hauling costs. We currently pay $106 to load or to pull a box from any of our facilities and get it where it needs to go. And there is a 2% cap on an annual increase on that in the agreement. And if we were to put something like that out for bid right now with fuel costs where they are, we're not going to come close to that dollar amount. So as we go through the end of the initial term and get into the renewal term on this, particularly with the competitor opening up, those are things that we need to look at and we need to weigh and we need to figure out what's the best interest of the district as we move forward financially, as well as moving forward with our programs and services and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to remove as much as we can from the waste stream and get it recycled. And then the big one is October 7th of 2024 is the solid waste disposal agreement will expire. That's the one that contains the host fee. Now, depending on what happens with the host fee agreement with Rumpke, obviously there are caveats in there that Republic may find things that they disagree with or that they think violate the requirements of us entering into a host fee with that new facility that opens. And there's certainly potential for them to try or to get out of that agreement at that time later this year. But the big one is in 2024, that initial 20-year term expires. Now there are renewal options in there, but they're not automatic. One party has to provide notice to the other, and the other party has to agree to renew it. So not sure what will happen there. I would remind the board that a couple of years ago, Bedford Recycling made an attempt to put a scrap metal facility down off of Dillman Road. Republic came out opposed to that facility, and even though that was a scrap metal facility, they did dangle the host fee as potentially being in jeopardy if that facility were to go through. So, that makes me a little leery of Republic's willingness to voluntarily continue to remain in a host fee agreement with us. But we'll move forward with negotiating a host fee with Rumpke for when they open, and work with our legal counsel to ensure that we've, at least from our perspective, legally complied with our obligations to do so, and have to see where that goes. So. Any questions on any of that stuff?
Yes, so the a possible host fee is currently being negotiated with Rumpke, our legal representative. Is that right, or not?
We have not presented anything to Rumpke at this point. We've been previously determined that we would work with Angela Parker, our former legal counsel, on this due to her familiarity with the Republic Service agreements, and Ms. Parker and I are working on getting a draft together that could be presented to Rumpke. And under the terms of the agreement, obviously it would be nice to have that agreement in place when they open their doors, but there is, there is a 30-day window in that agreement from when the facility opens to actually get that done before Republic would be able to cry foul.
Okay, so that is in process, and You
Yes,
expect to be able to?
we are in the process of drafting an agreement to present to Rumpke so that we can begin negotiations.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, let's move on.
All right, and then on page 109, number of bills that at least the Association of Solid Waste Management Districts, has been looking at following through this session. The first one that the city may be interested in is Senate Bill 33, which is commissioning a study on solar panel decommission and disposal. I know that the city has a number of solar arrays, as a county does as well, on showers. The Solid Waste District Association did support this legislation. It's not that there's an issue right now. They're actually being proactive and trying to get a study done now and figure out that down the road, when these panels need to be decommissioned, we have a plan on what to do with them. So it sounds like a good bill. Just try to be quick on it. The other one that I think everybody probably would have an interest in is House Bill 1167. Which involves live streaming and archiving of public meetings. I think for the most part in Monroe County, government entities are already satisfying what's being asked for here. Did find out this morning, bill was heard in committee this morning. They did change some of the language regarding the bodies that are subject to this. It initially was any governing body, which for us would include this board, our executive committee, our CAC, and they've changed that to an executive governing body, which would obviously be this board, the executive committee maybe, but would not involve the CAC. But again, all of our meetings are already done on Zoom and/or CATS. They're archived on Zoom and/or CATS, and we're already pretty much complying with all of that stuff. So beyond that, there's some other things that are in the memo, but in the interest of time, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if you see something after the meeting, you're welcome to email me if you have a question.
Okay. I know House Bill 1075, nonprofit organizations, has also been of some legitimate concern.
Yeah, I think that I heard some more, about that today, and that it certainly does. The way that it is written, it's very broad and would, in essence, grant the Attorney General's office a wide latitude and a good amount of power. I think that I honestly don't know what amendments have been proposed, if any, in that one at this point. It has been referred to the Senate, but there were a few specific scenarios, circumstances that happened to kind of prompt this. One was a large apartment complex in the Indianapolis area that was operated by a nonprofit that took everybody's rent money and didn't pay any bills, and everybody's heat and water got shut off. And,
Absolutely.
But the bill was written in very broad terms so that it could be interpreted that it could in fact cover a solid waste district. It could cover Planned Parenthood, the United Way. So it is something that we're watching and see what kind of amendments or what the Senate does with it now that they have it.
Yeah, thank you. I know that, to be quite blunt, I think a lot of people are concerned about the current Attorney General and his desire to over-politicize everything, and so that bill is very concerning. All right, thank you.
Okay. Tech services will need Joey Long to be able to share video and speak.
Can I make one comment before that?
Please.
On your general updates, you've noted that you'll be meeting at a staff level to review a draft of the EPP report. and on February 17th, and I would like to publicly express my strong displeasure about the fact that I'm excluded from that meeting. I know that's not your decision at all, but unless there's something to hide, I don't see why I or the CAC members or other members of this board should be excluded from that presentation.
Well, and it's not for me to speak for utilities or Mr. Kelson. You know, the explanation that was given to me, you know, that this is a draft report that's being looked at, and they're considering it more as a technical review and trying to identify areas where clarification, you know, may be needed, and they did not want, you know, they didn't want any, you know, undue influence to, on the consultant that, you know, could skew the objectivity of the final report, which will be presented at a public meeting. And there will certainly be time, you know, for comments and support, objection, whatever at that time. But, you know, all this study is really looking at is, you know, is it feasible for utilities to construct you know, such a facility? Nobody has said to do it yet. Nobody has said not to do it yet. They just want to know, is it, you know, is it economically, logistically feasible for utilities to undertake such a project? And if, you know, if the report comes back that it is, then there's certainly a number of questions and issues that would need to be addressed at that time. But the report may come back and say it's not realistic to do this. We don't know.
I mean, I think you can at least express to Mr. Kelson that we have a board member who strenuously disagrees with not being able to attend that meeting. So,
Well, we can do so.
thank you. All right. So I'm sorry, did you have any other updates you wanted to make before we move on to Mr. Long?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Long?
Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I can, yes.
Okay. I will start with the recycling and reuse. With the 2 new positions that we hired out, with them coming on, we had some offices to get some furniture. I reached out to Cook Medical, and they graciously donated us some very nice office furniture to repurpose instead of going out and trying to buy something. We also got enough furniture to repurpose some of the older stuff that was in some different offices. So, you know, that was great to reach out and get some stuff instead of, you know, reuse. With the hazardous materials, we are setting up our first tire shipment since we've started the program. And we have taken in 122 tires in about 8 months, I think it's been. So we've been able to help, you know, quite a few people that way with all the tires not being left in the yards or thrown out alongside the road, no mosquito pits or nothing like that. So that's been a great plus. And the rural recycling centers, the sites are all operating as normal. We did replace some furniture at the sites with some of the stuff that Cook donated. And that's what I have. If you guys have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions from Mr. Long from the left?
I appreciate Cook's generosity.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been great.
Yeah, Mr. Long, I was just wondering if we could get a comparison of 2022 to 2021 recycling tonnage. Is that something you usually do at the end of a year, kind of compare year to year?
Yeah, I have that. I can give it to Tom or have him send it out to everybody.
Great, thank you very much.
Tom?
I apologize. Hearing Mr. Long speak reminded me, I did have one other issue that I needed to comment on. We've been getting a number of calls this week with some of our orange bag vendors apparently are raising the prices of what they've been charging residents, you know, for those orange bags, and certainly not our intent. We've not raised our prices or the rebate that's provided to them. Have reviewed with legal counsel our fee resolution, and we both came away interpreting that fee resolution did establish the retail cost for those bags. Mm-hmm. That's why there's that 5% discount for the retailers put in there. So I am going to send a letter just to all of our retailers that do the orange bags with a copy of the fee resolution, advising them of what the established retail rate is. if we still have issues of non-compliance with that, we'll have to have some discussions and determine what kind of actions we want to do. You know, the last thing I want to do is make it harder for residents to get the orange bags. But the other thing that I do want to do at this point, barring objections from the board, because we have the fees established, I'm prepared to start selling the orange bags at our South Walnut facility through our Household Hazardous Waste Department, where we already do a number of financial transactions for items.
I think a lot of people would probably find that very convenient.
Mr. Chairman, I might just suggest, if they were charging the wrong amount, I'd ask them to pay back whatever they collected that was over that too, to the district.
Well, it would have to determine, not everybody that calls and complains tells exactly which store it was and exactly how much they paid. They just know it wasn't the $15 they were expecting to pay.
All right, well,
So-
thank you for that. All right, did you have anything else, Mr. Long?
No, I do not.
All right, anything else for, okay, great, we'll move on to Mr. Paulson.
I got one
Oh.
thing real quick. Is there any way we could sell the orange bags at the rural sites?
I'm not gonna just, I guess, straight up say no, but we, you know, we only have one employee out there at a time. There would be some security issues. We are certainly, at this point in time, not set up to transact money out there. But I'm not going to say that it's not something that we couldn't put, you know, things in place to make that possible. But at this time, it would not be. But I understand the question, and it obviously would make the most sense because that's where they're taking them to.
And I've noticed there's a lot of people that are asking for them. It's probably slowed down after a while, after they've been told, no, you can't get it here, go to the stores. But if there was some way we could set it up at the sites, I think that would solve a lot of issues, so.
We can certainly look at that.
Is there a way that they could prepay via the web and have things that they could just pick up at the sites?
That's a great idea.
That's what comes to mind, if they could have a receipt on their phone or something that they could show and to prove that they've paid for whichever role. I mean, that we can certainly, I understand the question, and I don't disagree with the intent of that, and it's something we can certainly look at. But as far as doing that now, for security purposes, I'm not comfortable doing that right now.
Right, and I didn't expect you to take cash in or anything like that, but, you know, something over a phone or, you know, transfer, the debit card swipe on the phone.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, card only would be the way to do that.
And we do have the ability to take the cards, debit and credit cards at our household hazardous waste facility now. We can work with our bank that set that up to see about, you know, what we can do on an app or on our website to see if we can set something up where we don't have to transact the money. We can just distribute the bags.
Personally, I do think starting out piloting with the HHW site at South Walnut is probably a good way to go, and then see if it, you know, it's something that could be expanded to the rural sites.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Paulson.
Hello there, Lee Paulson, Monroe County Landfill Director, Compliance Director. The report kind of speaks for itself today. Started the treatment plant back up once the weather was able to be warm enough for us to get seed load to get that started. We're not able to quite treat the amount of water I'd like to be treating right now because the temperatures and the weather is not, it's not really conducive for that right now. I mean, we're doing the best we can, but there's still a lot of hauling going on because it's, when the temperatures are 45 degrees one day and minus 10 the next, it doesn't really do well for the bugs to populate and do what they need to do. So we're doing the best we can and just continue to move forward. It's just been such a dry past 6 months or so that this is getting back into the swing of things. And the only thing I'd like to highlight is that the addition of Danny Persifield with the new position that we created is so far been working out how I'd hoped it would. Danny's been a huge blessing so far, being able to go take care of things like that to free up a little more time for Mary Beth and I to concentrate and not feel like we're always running around and never being caught up. Our case numbers are going to go up, which is what I want to see, because we're going to be able to have him out to address roadside things a lot easier and to go find some things instead of us always being reactive to waiting for calls. So, so far we've kind of come up with a plan to do coordinated cleanup sites around some of the roads that we know are really bad. And we've done 2 of those so far, and they've been very, very successful. Weights are up, but between Mary Beth, Danny, and myself, and to borrow somebody from Joey, we can get 4 people out on the side of the roads to a pretty nasty section of road and be able to take care of it within a couple hours, as opposed to one person being out there for several days. So, so far that's been a huge raging success. We've got a lot of them planned already, just trying to look at schedules and what everybody has all got going on. So, very pleased so far, and I hope to continue, keep working forward when it's a little less windy and rainy, so we can be out there to do it. So, if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Well, that's great. I'll bet that after the winds today, you'll probably have a little bit more cleaning up to do. It's
If we're driving around today and you just saw whole trash cans just picked up and moved and chucked across, so there's going to be more so than what there was yesterday, but it's out there.
yeah, it was pretty incredible today. I had a huge tree in my property come and had 8 Duke trucks in front of my house today working on the power.
Yeah.
That was a lot of wind. All right, any questions for Mr. Paulson from the right? From the left?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm sorry.
No, please.
Oh, okay. I noticed we're doing all of our hauling of leachate and stuff to Ellettsville now. Is there a reason we're not using Dillman anymore?
Cost affordability. Ellettsville is incredibly less expensive than using Dillman Road, using CBU costs. So it's it's just way more cost effective to do it that way. So that's kind of what it is. So, but yeah, I mean, CBU, I keep the CBU permit active just as a backup in case something does go wrong with Ellettsville, so that we do have that. But the cost comparison is like $36 for 5,000 gallons for Ellettsville, and CBU it's 180 just for disposal, not for transportation. Transportation would be about the same for what it is from the landfill to the Dillman Road facility, just because of, be able to get on 69 and be able to go quick, but the cost for disposal is much cheaper. So
I would add too that when we made the decision to move to Bynum Faneuil, who takes it to the Ellettsville facility, at that point we were also City of Bloomington Utilities made some changes that impacted all wastewater and septic haulers at that Dillman Road facility, and in order to get in there and dump at night and on the weekends, we're going to have to pay a premium. So they were really trying to limit, for a long time, our hauler had 24-hour access to that facility, and they really tried to rein that in. So.
Interesting.
And Mr. Paulson, can you correct your leachate numbers on the last page of the packet?
yeah, sorry about that. That gets used over and over and over again, and I actually zeroed out the formula for that Excel sheet. But the total leachate generated for January was 833,425 gallons. So that was I hit the wrong button and didn't notice it. So, but.
Okay.
Yeah, because on the sheet it just says 0. So, and that's not correct.
Got it. Thank you. All right. So thank you very much. Any other departmental reports? All right, we'll move on to public comment. We still don't have anybody on Zoom. Is there anybody in the Nat U Hill room who'd like to make public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to comments from directors, and we'll start with my right. Move on to the left. All right, seeing none, thank you all very much. Productive meeting, and we are adjourned.